Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's September 15th, and today we have with us Julia Leopold, who is from the Vermont Public Supply Authority. She joined VPSA in 2019 as a communications specialist. She handles all the PR, marketing outreach, and internal communications. She has a Bachelor of Science in Atmospheric Science from Cornell University, and she enjoys Vermont with a husband and a young toddler. And we're going to hear a little bit more about VPSA and what she does and how they communicate and affect communities, local communities. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity. I know that you grabbed the info probably from the VPSA website. That was really nice of you. Yeah, I've been at VPSA for about a year and a half. This was a career change for me, so I'm still very much learning about the electric utility industry, which is the sphere that VPSA operates in. I used to be a broadcast meteorologist, so I was on local news doing weather. So this is totally different, but I love it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I think the host.
Yeah, Kim has to make her host.
And Barb, where do I do that again? I think I click on you.
I think it's on the top right, and then you do participants, and then you click host.
Yep. Here we go.
Oh, great. Let's see.
Is that Xena Princess Warrior we hear in the background?
Can you all see what I'm seeing now?
We are.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it in this format. I like to be able to see what's on deck for my next slide. So again, thank you all for having me. Today I want to chat with you a little bit about utilities in general in Vermont. Do a little brief Vermont Utilities 101. I'll tell you about VPSA, the Vermont Public Power Supply Authority, who we are and what we do and why we're relevant to you folks. And then we'll talk about available rebates, basically how I can give you money, which is a great thing. I love that's part of my job, is that like people I think automatically like talking to me because they know that I'm going to probably send you a check after a conversation. So a little bit about Vermont utilities. There are 3 types of electric utilities in Vermont, and this is pretty much the case for states all over the country. You have 3 types of electric utilities. You have investor-owned. In Vermont, we have 1 investor-owned utility, and that's Green Mountain Power. Then there are co-ops. Co-ops were formed mainly to serve very rural areas. In Vermont, we have 2 co-ops, Vermont Electric Co-op and Washington Electric Co-op. And the way the co-ops run is different from an investor-owned utility. Investor-owned utilities are owned by investors. In Green Mountain Power's case, the investors are actually up in Canada, even though it is a Vermont company. The co-ops are run by the members. So the members have a board of directors, and the board of directors makes the decisions for the electric utility, how it operates. Then you have your public power utilities. These are municipally owned and governmentally run utilities. So there are trustee meetings that occur, I believe, on a monthly basis. The public, who's part of the public power community, is able to show up to these meetings, express their opinions, and changes are made based on how the public wants them to be made. So in Vermont, we have, I believe it's 14 public power utilities. 11 of them are members of Vermont Public Power Supply Authority. And then you have Burlington Electric Department, Stowe Electric, and the Village of Hyde Park that are also kind of their own separate entities. So 14 public power utilities, 2 co-ops, 1 investor-owned utility. You would think, well, most people are probably being served by a public power utility, but that's not the case. Vermonters who have public power utilities are very much in the minority. Only 1 in 7 Vermonters are served by public power. In Vermont, Green Mountain Power is kind of like this utility monster. They serve the majority of customers, where public power is a little bit more unique to find, especially in southern Vermont. You only have a couple of public power utilities. I'll show you that on the map. But basically, because there are so few customers served by public power utilities, and because public power utilities tend to each serve a small number of customers, for example, Ludlow Electric Light Department serves about 3,700 customers. Basically, these small utilities realized back in the late 1970s that they needed to come together and work together in order to provide services to their customers that were up to par with their regulatory needs, and also just to provide better customer service in general. So what these utilities did was come together and form the Vermont Public Power Supply Authority. So my organization provides services and solutions to municipal electric utilities. Some of the things that we do include power supply purchasing. We offer financial services, rates and planning. Basically, anytime there's a rates case that comes up where your electric rates may need to change, we are the ones kind of doing the back office work on that, working with your utility. We offer legislative and regulatory assistance, IT support, and most recently, we're offering communication and outreach. Traditionally, we have not done direct outreach to customers. That just wasn't really a necessity of VPSA. But within the past couple of years, the Vermont legislature has enacted the Renewable Energy Standard, which requires utilities to support energy transformation projects. So essentially getting Vermonters off of fossil fuel and ideally onto electric, which is much cleaner than fossil fuel in most cases. So that's kind of why I came in, was to help spread the word about these programs, about how we can offer incentives to Vermonters to get off of fossil fuel and onto electric. So a little bit about where we work. We're all over the state. See, if you can see my cursor, this is Ludlow right here. So again, only a couple in southern Vermont. Ludlow, and then down here you have the village of Jacksonville, but the majority of our public power utilities are found up in the northern part of the state. We've got Swanton Village up in the northwest corner. And these utilities are all fairly small. Each utility has fewer than 6,000 customers. And again, Ludlow's kind of right in the middle of the pack, but we do have a few really small utilities, like the village of Jacksonville, like I mentioned, down here in the very southern part of the state, only has 700 customers. Up here, you have the village of Orleans, again, also only about 700 customers. They're a really interesting utility, I think, because they've got, again, about 600 or some odd residential customers, and then they've got the Ethan Allen manufacturing plant. So if you look at their number of customers, about, again, 700, but about half of their electric demand comes from one customer, and again, it's the furniture manufacturing. In Ludlow, you've kind of got a similar situation where you have a handful of residential customers, but then you've got actually two really big commercial customers. You've got Okemo, and you've also got Imerys, which I think I'm saying right. I've heard some people say Imerys, but they're the talc production facility. To zoom in on Ludlow a little bit more, so this map is similar to the one I just showed you. Each different color that's on here represents a different utility territory. So up in the northern portion of Vermont, you can see you've got this whole gray area, which I believe is Vermont Electric Co-op. Then you've got a bunch of different colors. These are some more municipal electric utilities. Then you've got this large sea of green, which is Green Mountain Power territory. And if we zoom in here, here's Ludlow Electric Light Department's territory that's outlined, and it covers the village of Ludlow, part of the town of Ludlow, extends into Mount Holly, into part of Plymouth, and even over into Cavendish. So it's kind of this funky area. It's not, neatly defined by just the village. It extends out beyond the village. And I thought that was interesting to see, because you can see there are parts of Ludlow that are not served by Ludlow Electric Light Department and instead are served by Green Mountain Power. So you're this little municipal territory kind of in a sea of Green Mountain Power. So I want to talk a little bit about what we pride ourselves on and what Ludlow Electric Light Department is part of. Something that's really important to VPSA is that we comply with the Renewable Energy Standard, and in some cases we even go above and our public power utilities, including Ludlow Electric Light Department, are 60% renewable and 90% carbon-free, which is just fantastic. There's no requirement right now on being carbon-free. There's only a requirement on renewability. In some cases, being renewable doesn't necessarily mean being carbon-free, but we've really gone above and beyond by hitting 90% carbon-free. We also pride ourselves on being reliable. Over the course of a year, power outages in our VPSA communities are 42 minutes shorter than in the rest of Vermont. So we're doing really well with regards to keeping your lights on all year round. And this is a big one, affordability. This is the one that we think that a lot of people really care about. You want your electric rates to be low. On average, our municipalities offer household electric rates that are 11.3% lower than what the typical Vermonter pays. That's on average across all 11 of our utilities. Ludlow Electric Light Department has the lowest rates in the state of Vermont. It's really impressive. So I just looked at some of the data that's most recently available. And in Ludlow, it looks like residential rates are about 11.79 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look at the co-ops and the IOU, you can see that you're significantly lower than that. You're actually paying about 30% less than what the typical Vermonter pays. So this is, I think, a really interesting point because Vermont is kind of notorious for having higher electric rates than in other states in the country. But you can see that you guys are paying the best rate that there is to offer. And again, this is specifically for residential rates. So because we have these incredibly low rates in Ludlow Electric Light Department territory, I think that just kind of further incentivizes that transition from fossil fuel to electric. I mentioned that the Vermont State Legislature has essentially required utilities to incentivize that transition. So what I mean by that is if you buy an electric vehicle, you're essentially saying, okay, I'm not using gas anymore. I'm using electric to power my car. That's your energy transformation. We already know that your electric rates are really low, so that's going to save you money over time. But what's nice is that we can also offer an upfront incentive. So if you buy an electric vehicle, I can give you up to $1,400 back. We offer incentives on a lot of other items like heat pump water heaters, electric bikes, electric lawnmowers, electric forklifts, and heat pumps. So I'll show you a whole list here. Like I mentioned, for an electric vehicle, you can get up to $1,400 back in a rebate. Our base rebate is $1,000 back, but then for low-income households, you can get an additional $400. And that's on top of a statewide incentive that I believe is currently up to $5,000. I'll have to check on that, but essentially you can get a lot of money back up front if you qualify for these incentives. We offer a cold climate heat pump rebate. Again, the base rebate is $400. If you have completed one of our qualifying weatherization projects, you can qualify for an additional $100 on top of that, so grand total of $500 per outdoor unit. And I wanted to show you this list because there are a lot of measures on here that have a high upfront cost, like an electric vehicle. Obviously, we're not covering the full cost of an electric vehicle. We're just trying to sweeten the deal for you a little bit. But then you have these items like a residential lawnmower, which it's not going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars to buy a lawnmower. It may cost, a couple hundred, but we're able to give you a little bit back on that. So as you look at this list, I just want you to keep in mind, okay, well, maybe your water heater is functioning perfectly fine right now, but that might not be the case in the next 5 to 10 years. So we have an option that's available to you that you can use and you can get some money back on. I also wanted to show you that this is, I think, a really interesting graph or chart. This shows you using the current heating oil prices and propane prices, how much it would cost per MMBTU to heat your home with a heat pump versus electric resistance versus, again, heating oil or propane, and how that changes at different temperatures. I don't know how familiar you all are with heat pump technology. This is relatively new technology in the Northeast, but essentially what a heat pump does is it can either heat or cool your home. So in the winter months, it'll heat your home using electricity, but it's incredibly efficient. It essentially takes heat from outside and moves it into your home. So it's a lot more efficient than electric resistance, it's a lot more efficient than heating oil or propane. And because your rates are so low, this is showing you that at 47 degrees outside, it's costing you $8.64 per MMBTU to heat your home versus if you're using heating oil, which is basically double that cost. Now, as it gets colder and colder outside, the efficiency does drop. And because I plugged in numbers from September 2020, heating oil is really cheap right now because of the pandemic that we're all experiencing. So once you get to about 5 degrees, that's kind of where you have that turnover point where it actually becomes more expensive or more cost effective to use your heating oil compared to a heat pump. But I just thought that this really illustrated nicely that for a lot of the time throughout the year, it's actually more cost effective, even with our current low oil prices, to be running a heat pump in your home. So takeaway here is that we can give you $500 back, up to $500 back per outdoor condenser on a heat pump. And then throughout the time that you're using your heat pump, it will most likely be costing you less money to run and to heat your home than it would to using heating oil or propane. So how do you take advantage of these rebates? How do you actually access them? The best way is to visit our website, which is www.vppsa.com. And then up in the top right corner here, there's this little section that says rebate forms. So you click on that, and that's going to bring me to another page that's going to list all of the rebates that are currently available. And these are available to any customer of Ludlow Electric Light Department. So you scroll through here, you choose whichever one you want to choose. Let's say you're interested in buying an electric vehicle. Well, then you click on the electric vehicle rebate. You can either get up to $1,400 for a new electric vehicle, up to $500 for a pre-owned electric vehicle. You click on whichever button is applicable to you, and it will take you to the rebate form. You fill out this form completely. You have to enter in just some basic contact information, your name, your phone number, your email address. You fill in your electric utility, your utility account number, and then some information about the vehicle. And then for each rebate form, we do request proof of purchase. So in this case, this would be a copy of your sales agreement or your lease agreement. We would need a copy of your Vermont registration. In some cases, we'll also require a W-9 form, but all that information is in this box up top here. So let's say you're getting a heat pump. You would need to provide your proof of purchase. You might need to take a picture of the model number. All the instructions, again, found in this box up top. So once you do that, you fill it all out, you compile all your documentation, and you mail it to me. You can either mail it in basic cold snail mail, or you can scan it and send it via email to rebates@VPSA.com. And we'll send you a check right back. So it's kind of a great way for you all to save money, to get that incentive up front, and to help your utility keep rates low. As you add more electricity to the system, by charging an electric vehicle, by running a heat pump, you're actually decreasing pressure on rates. The more electricity that people use at the right times, the more able Ludlow Electric Light Department is to keep their rates low. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. And we really like that because, let's say, for example, your neighbor is able to buy an electric vehicle, but you aren't. And you're saying, okay, well, hey, how come my neighbor's getting $1,400 back from the utility? That's not fair. Well, the way that we work it out is that the electric utility will recover that money over the course of the electric vehicle's lifetime. And that's helping, again, to keep those rates down. So through the added sales, through the money that the utility is getting back over the course of the lifetime, that helps you, who may not be able to afford buying an electric vehicle, it helps keep your rates low. So we try to make this work out as a win-win-win situation. Presentation. If you have I'm happy to answer them. I may not be able to answer them all. Like I mentioned, I am still new to this industry, but I'm also happy to point you to the people who can potentially answer questions better.
All right, well, thank you very much. That was great. Kim, are you able to take the host part away so we can get Jim in? Jim's trying to get in. And Bridget, you had a question?
I did. So, Julia, are these rebates only available to the non-Green Mountain Power customers?
Yes, so these rebates are available to any customer of a VPSA member utility. And in your area, that is Ludlow Electric Light Department. If you do have Mountain Power, they offer their own programs that are very similar. They offer their own rebates. So I would suggest getting in touch with them in order to find out what rebates are offered.
Thank you.
Sure. And looks like you're asking a question. I give you control again.
I think if you click on your profile, there's 3 little dots in the far right corner, maybe. Or if not, can you add Jim Rumrell, the waiting room? Do you see him?
I will try.
Okay.
Sorry. We got a couple people.
You got a couple people coming in. Good. Thank you.
Sure.
So any other questions? Again, remember, I can't see everyone's hands. So if you're raising your hand, let me know. Ralph, go ahead.
Just a very simple question about the electric vehicles. What about charging stations? Do you have anything to do with that?
We currently offer a rebate on charging stations that are available to the public to use or are available within a workplace. So we don't currently offer any residential rebates for charging stations, but if you have an office that could make a charging station available to the public, then that would be eligible for a $500.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Julie, I have a simple question for you. Could you share those slides that you produced with us, or you need to keep those for yourself?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to send them. Kim, if I send them to you, would you be able to share them out?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Sure.
How about
Kevin?
any other? Go ahead, Sharon, is that you?
Yeah, I think, Lisa, this applies to Ludlow Electric just put out on the town website a poster contest for a community-powered hero. Is that from your association?
That is, yes. So the Vermont Public Power Supply Authority is part of an even larger group called the American Public Power Association. So it basically unites public power utilities all across the country. So what we're doing is participating in the American Public Power Association's Community Heroes poster contest. What we're looking for is for students to either draw a picture, just, using crayons, markers, or they could do it on their computer. They could, do it on Paint or any other more sophisticated software that they have access to. Draw a picture of who their community hero is, write a brief description of their community hero, and then we request that an adult tweet it. So this is exclusively through social media. It's being hosted kind of Twitter. So our Twitter handle is @VT Public Power. So you tweet your picture and your little description of who the community hero is. You make sure to include @VT Public Power, and they're entered in the contest. We'll provide a small prize to the local winner, and then the local winner will be entered into the larger contest through American Public Power Association and have the opportunity to win $500.
So it could be your favorite lineman for the power company, or it could be the lady that helps you at the grocery store.
could be anyone that you think is a hero within your community. It does not have to be related to,
Considered a hero to the child.
yeah, could be your soccer coach, something
Okay,
along those lines. Yeah. But
nice idea.
thanks for the word on that. We appreciate that.
Anybody else have a question? I'm scrolling through. Go ahead, Glenn.
Oh, I
Glenn, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry
There
about
you
that. Where does your group stand in, say, the installation of a solar array? Would that be sort of counter to what, you're trying to achieve?
Sure, that's a really good question. When it comes to solar, I think what you're likely referring to is net metering. Is that right? So net metering is this idea that if you live in a house, you choose to install solar on your rooftop. The way that it works is that essentially you pay the net of what you're using. So if you produce more electricity from your solar panels than you're using within your house, you would actually end up getting a credit, and that would last for about a year. What we have found is that because the utility has to buy back that electricity that you're producing at a much higher rate than retail sales, it becomes a situation where you're actually putting upward pressure on rates. So you're essentially forcing the utility to buy more expensive electricity. Obviously, solar is renewable, which is fantastic for our climate. But what VPSA is doing is exploring different ways that we can include renewables within our profile in a way that's going to put downward pressure on our rates, or at least not increase them. So something that VPSA has been doing, we partnered with Encore Renewable Energy, which is a solar developer, and we've been putting up utility scale solar projects throughout the state. We've already one that interconnected, I think it was last May, and we've got, I think, 4 or 5 more in the works. And we've been finding that this is a really great way to go forward with solar and achieve those renewable requirements that we need to achieve without raising the cost of electricity for Vermonters.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Hands? Speak out if I don't see your hand.
Mary has a question.
Mary, go ahead, Mary.
Raise, do they provide this to Vermonters, or are you selling it out of state?
You know what? I missed the first part of your question. I couldn't hear it.
Okay, the solar arrays that you have and are preparing to have, do you sell that power out of state, or does it benefit Vermonters?
That's a really good question. And I would probably have to have folks from our power supply department answer that, like, make sure it's perfect. But I believe that the way it works for us is that within our renewable energy requirements that we need to meet, we have to retire a certain amount of that solar that's produced in state. So that means it's staying local. I know that that's the case for some of the solar projects that we've been developing recently and have already developed. The one that I mentioned that interconnected last spring, that is part of, it's called the Standard Offer Project. So it's based in Morrisville. Essentially, any utility in Vermont that isn't already 100% renewable buys that output and retires it. So that means that it's staying entirely in state. We're not selling that out of state. But I need to check in with our power supply team. What I can do is I'll follow up on that, and then I can maybe email Kimberly back the answer, because I do know that that's an area of concern. I think what you're getting at is this idea that that we're selling the solar out of state, that other states are able to claim renewable credits. And the reason that that's done has to go back to keeping rates low. So when we develop solar in Vermont, you're able to sell it out of state at a higher price, and then you're able to buy back less expensive renewable credits from other states. And that is just a way to, again, keep the rates low while actually producing the solar in state. So what I'll do is I'll look into how much solar we're selling versus how much we're keeping in state, and I'll email Kimberly that answer.
I think the one that really bugs me is the one that's in Ludlow. And it's on, they put it on what was one of the most beautiful farms in Vermont. It was 450 acres or something. And it was all open space. There was a farmhouse at the top of the hill. And now you have to drive by this array of solar panels that is providing power to Florida. And maybe everyone else doesn't feel the same way, but I resent that.
And yeah, I think that's a valid concern to have within Vermont. We care about our natural beauty of the state. We take so many steps to try to keep it beautiful. While I think, you know, you can be frustrated about the fact that maybe those renewable energy credits associated with the generation are being sold out of state. But the thing about generating electricity is that you can't tag the electrons and follow where they go. So the electrons, the actual physical electricity that's being produced by those solar arrays, those are not making it down to Florida. Those are powering the homes in Ludlow. So yes, it's frustrating, but I think the thing to keep in mind is that when you do have solar arrays, they are physically powering your homes. And for the solar credits that are being sold out of your state, that's usually being done as a way to keep costs low. So yeah, it's interesting because there are kind of these two sides to this argument. But I think what VPSA tries to do, and that's not one of our solar arrays, that doesn't belong to us. What we try to do when we develop solar is to figure out how can this benefit the customer and the community and the utility all together. Something that we're working on in Morrisville, again, another area within Morrisville, is helping a farmer keep her land. Farmer there who's become very frustrated by the fact that she just can't operate her farm and sustain her business. So as a result, what she's doing is working with us and working with our solar developer to lease her property to the solar developer. The solar developer pays her essentially like a monthly rent. And then all the electricity produced goes to that community. So she's able to keep her land. We're able to meet our regulatory requirements. And it's just kind of like a nice win. The utility doesn't have to pay for solar. We're also taking that model and bringing it up to the village of Orleans to help another farmer in that area as well. There are ways to make it work and to make it benefit the community and not have those frustrations over, oh, I have to look at this thing and it's not even helping me. Trying to figure out how can we make it at least help the people that have to look at it.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, Julia. Appreciate you coming here and speaking with us. Lots of good information there, especially the rebates. Unfortunately, I'm Green Mountain Power, so I'll go on their site, see if I can get some rebates on some things. Because I'm using I have electric bike, and electric mower, and an electric car maybe one day, maybe next year, we'll see. But thanks again, appreciate it.